I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 138. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Chardello, coming to you on Thursday, October 26th, and we've got homecoming. Oh yeah, Cats are coming home, baby. Southwest Texas State Cats, I should say, getting in those SWT throwbacks coming up this Saturday against the Troy Trojans. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough matchup. We've talked about it in fall camp. It's a really tough homecoming matchup for the Bobcats. There was ULM earlier in October. Could have set that one up, but they went for the strong opponent. And I respect it. I'm coming around to it. I've waffled back and forth. When I did my big season preview in fall camp, this was one of the upsets I had for the Bobcats for Troy. I've thought a lot about it since, and we'll see where I still land. We'll get to that. I have a nice little preview or review. We're going to talk all about the Troy Trojans. But before we do that, this episode is sponsored by TGC. TGC LLC, thegalindocollective.com. That's Galindo, galindocollective.com. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com and follow their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC_LLC and on Instagram and Facebook at the Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy Rick Galindo over there, a true Texas State sicko, a Texas State grad. He's been with us all through the season. It's been a great season. Real happy to have Rick and the Galindo Collective with us. Go find them at thegalindocollective.com. We are also sponsored by our friends at Balcones Roofing and Remodeling, the most experienced F-Wave roofing contractor in Central Texas. F-Wave is a highly impact-resistant lifetime shingle with stunning designer curb appeal. It is the only roofing product on the market with an exclusive hail warranty. And man, the weather around here has been terrible. In fact, today, I'm recording this on Thursday, pretty torrential downpours all day in this area. I can imagine the hailstorms are coming soon. And Carl, he's been busy. My guy over there, Carl Larson at Balcones, he's been real busy. Converted Gamecock. Now he's on the good guys with the maroon and gold. He's jumping in with us this season. Really appreciative to Carl Larson. But hit them up at balconesroofsaustin.com. That's BALCONES, balconesroofsaustin.com. You can call them at 512-937-8805. It's 512-937-8805. And follow them on Twitter at Balcones Roofing on Twitter, or X. I have to call it X. That's really staying. I thought for sure they'd switch it back to Twitter, but here we are, still calling it X. We are also sponsored by Thaddeus Watkins, San Marcos Edward Jones financial advisor. You know who Thad Watkins is, former Texas State offensive lineman. Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized to you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation change? When you work with Thaddeus Watkins, your San Marcos Edward Jones financial advisor, he focuses on what's important to you. You'll work together and use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. Contact my guy, Thaddeus Watkins, at 737-373-8200. That's 737-373-8200 and at edwardjones.com/Thaddeus-Watkins. And on Twitter at Big Thad, BIGGTHADD _. Shout out to Thad Watkins. Who better to protect your finances than a former Texas State offensive lineman? He is the truest of sickos. It's really great to see him out and about this whole season. He's been coming around for years, but to see him get to enjoy the success the Cats have had so far has been a lot of fun. And we are also sponsored by Austin Patchmaster, our good friends at Austin Patchmaster, one of our first sponsors. Austin.patchmaster.com. Is your ceiling or wall cracked? Need that popcorn ceiling removed? Did you punch a hole in your wall after the Bobcats almost lost to ULM last time that they were out there? Well, don't worry. You can hit up my guy, Michael Clements, a true Tech State sicko, a Texas State grad. They are servicing the greater Austin area and can also provide referrals to Patchmaster agents in Houston, Dallas. But if you're in this area, contact them. They'll come out and help you out with anything you need. Austin.patchmaster.com. You can call them at 512-200-3888. That's 512-200-3888. We'll do a quick promo for our guys at Chilsea. I mentioned it before on the last pod. It's been a while since I've been able to jump on and do this. But on the last episode, I talked about Chilsea, Chilsea.com, Chillzey. We will be handing out koozies at homecoming. And by we, I mean mainly me. Webb's going to be busy doing his own thing. I'm going to be wandering around handing out some of these koozies, getting a little guerrilla marketing going, on the ground, meeting the people. So come find me. If you're at the game, reach out to me, send me a message. Otherwise, I'm going to be handing them out, trying to elicit some new listeners out there, trying to get some people there. But for Chilsey, check out Chillzey.com. You can get custom koozies just like these Win Now or Get Bent ones like I've shown you here. They also make tumblers. My guy Dennis over there, he made me a special Win Now or Get Bent one. This one's just for me, but you can get custom tumblers, whatever you want on there. If you order 6 or more, they're actually only $15 a piece. So if you're doing it for some sort of family event or a work event or just for fun, hit them up. That's and for 6 or more tumblers, use the promo code Bobcats. That's how you get it for $15 a piece. But check them out, Chillzey.com. Thanks to Chilsey for the koozies. I'm real excited to pass those out. I mentioned new merch last time. I'll give it another quick plug. I'm wearing the shirt right here. Sweater, sicko sweater, Win Now or Get Bent. WNOGB.com. Go check those out. Nice comfy sweater. Good price on it. Okay, that's enough ad reads. Let's get to these Bobcats. I guess these Bobcats and these Troy Trojans. We're going to talk a lot about Troy. A real tough opponent coming up for the Bobcats. One thing I'm right off the bat, I'm thinking I didn't even look up the odds. I'm pretty sure it's like a touchdown in favor of Troy. But before I even get started, I'm going to look up those odds because I definitely know Troy is favored. 6.5-point favorites is what it says right off the bat on Google. I like to use OddsShark. I don't know what all of your preferences for checking odds, but OddsShark.com is a good one. Yeah, it also says 6.5. 6.5 for the game. You got an over under for me. 50.5 for the over under. It's the number one offense versus the number one defense in the Sun Belt. So I get why that's 50.5. I thought it would have been like 52.5, somewhere around there. You see that number a lot. But tough opponent. Cats have a chance though. There's a chance, and we'll get to there. Let's do a quick recruiting cleanup. This week, Westfield DB Carson Williams decommitted from Texas State. So last time out, talked about Doty, Frederick Doty, Kennedale safety. He had just committed, flipped from UNT, gave the Bobcats 16 commits, all of them in high school. 5 of those 16 were defensive backs. Now it's only 4 of 15 are defensive backs with Westfield DB Carson Williams decommitting. Not sure what the situation is there, but like I said, they had 5 DBs, so it seemed like there was a bit of an influx there. This may have been a mutual situation. I don't know exactly. But when you see one DB commit and another one decommit pretty quick, it's pretty telling about what that situation is about. But no more Carson Williams. That would have been PJ Hatter went to Westfield, would have been his teammate. Or former teammate, I should say. But yeah, they're back down to 15. And I talked about it a lot on the last episode 137. Go check it out if you missed it. Before I jump more into Carson Williams, last episode I talked about how we had the camera issues. Some of that creeped back up this week, where even if you see episode 137, it's lagging a little bit. There's some deal with the frames per second and just the context of there's a lot of jargon that Webb knows, that he knows it more than I know. But there were some issues with it, and when we put it out on Friday, we're like, that's not up to our standards. So we've been tinkering, making adjustments, and it looks much better. It's actually a much more efficient way to do this whole situation, because before it would take a long time to load after the pod. Now it's going from 3 hours to about 10 minutes with the way we're doing it now. So maybe instant reaction pods on the horizon, because that was the one thing that was holding us back. Is like, well, it takes a really long time for us to upload it this way. But yeah, sorry, they haven't been as frequent this bye week, but it was a good time for us in the bye week to fix everything and get it going. Now it's no longer a Band-Aid, it's a healed fix, and we are good to go for the rest of the season. But yes, so going back to where I was on that last episode, talked about how they're going to go after JUCOs and transfers. The transfer portal window doesn't open until December 4th. So the focus right now is junior college players, especially with them having a bye week. These coaches were able to go on the road and go to some of these junior colleges and scout some of these players and do all of that. And then once December 4th hits, they're going to look more into the 4-year transfers, FBS, FCS players, and they'll have until from December 4th to January 2nd for that transfer window. And then the transfer portal window opens again in April for 15 days towards the end of April. So two times to get in there. It's a shorter window now than it was in the past. But I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. They seem to be pretty efficient with working in the portal. But with that being said, the fact that they are going after junior college and other 4-year transfer players, some of these, it could make sense why Carson Williams is decommitting, because maybe they're wanting room for some of those junior college or 4-year transfers that we've talked about. And so making a little room for that, that's what I mean when I say it could be mutual. It could, because usually if a guy is decommitting to flip, they decommit and then they flip pretty quick. Like we saw with Doty. Doty decommitted from UNT a Sunday morning, and then Sunday evening was committed to Texas State. Williams decommitted 3-4 days ago now, and not much else on that front. So I don't know. He's a really good player. He's got some good offers, so I know he'll bounce on somewhere. But yeah, that was just a little bit of recruiting cleanup. No new commits or anything yet, but they are having a ton of junior college visitors. I'll make sure to take some good pictures of them when I'm at the game on Saturday. But let's jump into Troy. Let's talk about Troy, the Troy Trojans, another team that has been a thorn in the side of the Bobcats. Texas State is 1-12 all time against Troy. And the one was in 1997. So they've lost the last 11, including the last 8 in the Sun Belt. Now, there was a time why they played some in the 90s, and that's when Texas State got, in the second game they ever played, the Bobcats got a win. And they were both in the Southland Conference for a little while. Troy was actually pretty dominant in the Southland at that time. That was before they jumped to the Sun Belt. So they're two-time conference foes, Troy and Texas State. Although it was pretty short-lived, Troy and Texas State in the Southland. Like I said, 11-game winning streak. A lot of times I'll do these Troy reviews or these team reviews, and we'll go through all the losses, or not all the games that the Bobcats have played, a lot of them being losses. I think that's why that was a little bit of a Freudian slip. But we're not going to go through all 11. That's a lot. I'll say this. Most of them are pretty handy. Shout out once again to our good friends at Winsipedia. Although even shout out to the Texas State website, txst.com. On their schedule, they have a history tab underneath the teams when you look at the schedule. And it pulls up the history, but I think it's only the history of the Sun Belt for Troy because it only has the 8 games. But looking at Winsipedia, it's, the series started in 1996. Bobcats' only win was 1997, 31-17. Most of the time, let's jump into the Sun Belt. It's been pretty heavy-handed losses. Troy 42-28 in 2016 or in 2013, 40-7 in 16. 62-9 in 2017, 12-7 in 2018. A low-scoring game. I forgot about that one. It was in Troy. I guess that's why I forgot about it. 2019, 63-27. 2020, 37-17. But then you come to the last two, and those are the two games that I want to talk about. 2021 and last year in 2022, where the Bobcats lost by a combined 6 points, 3 points in each game. They hung in there with an opponent that was much better than them, especially last year. Troy won the whole Sun Belt. Bobcats won 4 games that year. But let's jump into last year's game first. We'll go in descending order, starting with 2022. But last year was a 17-14 loss in Troy. Texas State was fresh off that App State win. It was the very next game. You know, the lots of high energy for the Bobcats at this time. A low scoring game, obviously, by the final score, 17-14. It was tied to 0 after the first quarter before Troy jumped out to a 10-0 lead in the second quarter, propelled by a 74-yard touchdown by Tez Johnson. There's a few guys on Troy's team that I'm glad aren't playing anymore. Tez is one of them. Carlton Marshall's another, the linebacker. He was terrific for so long for them. But yeah, there's that Tez Johnson touchdown and then a field goal. Bobcats put together one last drive before the half with a Lincoln Perry touchdown run. That made it 10-7. Texas State quickly took the lead in the third quarter with a 64-yard touchdown pass from Lane Hatcher to Lincoln Perry. Perry had a terrific game, actually. He had 144 combined yards, 73 rushing, 71 receiving, including that 64-yard touchdown pass from Perry. So Bobcats are up 14-10. And then a 23-yard pass at the beginning of the fourth for Troy made it 17-14. From then on out for the Bobcats, it's 8 plays, 2 punts. The entire fourth quarter. Troy gets the ball back with 5:28 left and runs the clock out. It was looking like it was going to be a good game to the end, and then it just ended on a long drive that ran the clock out. So disappointment for the Bobcats, but that was a close one. That was closer than it probably should have been, especially when you see how both the seasons shook out for both teams. And that was one of a handful of games for Texas State last year where they were so close. They were so close to 7 wins last year. And that's the one that really sticks out, was that Troy game. And can you imagine the App State win and then beating Troy, the momentum? Spav might still be here. Don't think about that too hard. But let's talk about 2021, because then the year before as well, 31-28, another 3-point game. Once again, Troy jumped out to a 10-0 lead. That's a bit of a trend, propelled by Kamani Vidal 45-yard touchdown run. Remember that name, Kamani Vidal, leading rusher in the nation and in the Sun Belt right now. That's what the Bobcats have to look forward to this weekend. Texas State got on the board with a Brock Sturgis touchdown, but then Troy followed it with Tez Johnson scoring a touchdown for the Bobcats. That made it 17-7 in the second quarter. A 75-yard touchdown pass from Brady McBride to Javin Banks made it 17-14 at the half. Another Kamani Vidal touchdown made it 24-14 in the third, before 2 quick scores right at the end of the third quarter for the Bobcats. Gave them the lead, 28-24, right before the fourth quarter. Going into the fourth quarter, they were both passes from McBride to Ashton Hawkins. That's when he was starting to first come onto the scene. It was before last year when he really broke out as the number 1, but when he was starting to come along towards the end of his first year with the Bobcats. And then TJ Graham was the other touchdown. Shout out to TJ Graham. He ended up transferring to Northern Colorado, but had a pretty good final season with them last year. But then we get to the fourth quarter, and it's just like that game last year in 2022, where it's looking like it's going to be good. Bobcats have the lead, or at least a competitive game. And then 3 interceptions for McBride in the fourth quarter, 3 consecutive drives. The one in the middle, the second one was a pick 6. That sealed the game. That ended it. It was otherwise a pretty good game from McBride. Just, that's going to be the thing that everybody remembers, is 3 consecutive interceptions to end that game, including that pick 6. But it's 2 games that they were really close in. 2021, that wasn't as good as a team as the 2022 Troy Trojans, but it was still a more competitive game than anticipated. But flashing forward to this year, a lot's changed for the Bobcats. In both those games that I just talked about with Troy, they had a different coaching staff. They had a lot of different players. And it's a completely different scene now, except for one aspect. It's on the other side. Troy's still really good. They are the defending Sun Belt champions for a reason. But Texas State and Troy, they're tied for the West right now. Both teams are 5-2 overall, 2-1 in the Sun Belt. And John Summerall winning it in his first year. Texas State has a first-year coach, so it can be done, guys. But this team is tough as nails. It's even when we put out a presser pod, go check that one out if you haven't already. It's audio only, but you can hear GJ Kinney and Daniel DePrado and Sean Holton and Caleb Culp all talking about this team and what they're anticipating. And the word of the day was toughness when talking about Troy, because that's what they bring. It's the number one offense in the Sun Belt with Texas State, 38.3 points per game, 491 yards per game, versus the number one defense in the Sun Belt with Troy. 17.4 points per game is what they're allowing, 281 total yards. So, number one offense in the Sun Belt versus the number one defense. On the flip side of that, for Troy, it's the number 10 offense versus the number 10 defense for Texas State. It's interesting that matchup right there. That the two sides of the ball that are towards the top of the conference, and then the other two sides for these teams are towards the bottom, but those are the two sides that'll match up on Saturday. That'll be for an interesting game. I mean, obviously, the number one offense versus the number one defense, that's going to be the headline. Which one's gonna prevail? But don't sleep on the other aspect of it, because Troy has a pretty good offense and Texas State has got a pretty good defense. In fact, I have a whole little note a little further down where I'm gonna talk about that defense. I mean, they're third in the country in tackles for a loss. They've let a lot of points go. There's been some mistakes. There's been some silly penalties. But this defense can still hang. They have played up and down to their opponents, but up when they need to. Troy is third in the Sun Belt in total rushing as well. Even talking about their offense, they may be 10th overall, but they have the third best rushing offense. I've already mentioned Kamani Vidal. He's a terrific player, arguably the best running back in the Sun Belt. I'm sure there's some people who would argue Marcus Clark for Georgia State. I'm sorry, Marcus Carroll. I said Marcus Clark. I think that was a former Texas State running back from like 2012. Marcus Carroll for Georgia State. He's really good himself. Ali at Marshall. Noel at App State's really good. Gosh, and of course Ishmael Mahdi for the Bobcats. But in my opinion, I think it's Vidal. I mean, he's been doing it for a little while now. It's funny he's only a junior. I thought for sure he'd be a senior, because he's been a solid back for them for a minute. So they have that in the chamber for them as well. They have some pretty good receivers that we'll talk about as well. But they're going to run the ball. They're going to try to control the clock. That's what they want to do. They're going to want to take away that time of possession from the Bobcats. The less time the Texas State's offense is on the field, the better for Troy, obviously. I mean, we just talked about what they did last year with John Summerall as their coach, with Gunnar Watson at quarterback. Although I think what was the backup's name? Jarrett Doge? Was it Doge? Forget how to say that guy's last name, but I think he may have been in the fourth quarter in that game. But it's a lot of the same players. And what was their game plan against Texas State? As soon as they got that lead, they ran that clock out. That was their goal. And that's what they're going to try and do again. They're going to try and control the tempo of the game. And the Bobcats, how they counteract that and control the tempo of the game is we saw them try to play that game with ULM, and it didn't work out until they remembered who they were in the fourth quarter and got those 2 touchdowns to Hobart. They tried to have these long drives, and they won the time of possession battle that game. But that's not Texas State's game. It's not this what this team's identity is. They're going to control the game with explosive plays. They're going to score fast. They're going to score so fast that you can't get a hold of what's going on. You don't control the tempo of the game because all of a sudden the Bobcats are in the end zone. That's what they want to do. But Troy isn't going to want to let them do that. It's going to be a fun battle. I really think it is, to see which one of these system prevails. Some players to watch though. I mentioned Vidal. I've got a handful of players to watch because there are actually a lot of Troy players to watch. And even on this list, I always try to keep it at just 5 players, but I peppered in a few more, and I could have made it longer, but I'll keep it at 7 names I have here I'm going to talk about. But Vidal, I've mentioned a lot about him. 951 yards rushing. It's just an absolute hoss, and he's been doing it for them for a while. Gunnar Watson, senior quarterback. Last year was kind of a two QB deal. This year, Watson seems to have the reins on it. 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1,700 plus yards. I forgot to make a note of how many yards he had, but I know he's up to he's over 1,700 on the season. Efficient quarterback. Like I said, this is a running offense, and they just need him to not turn the ball over, and he's pretty good at that. At receiver, got sophomore Chris Lewis. He doesn't lead the team in receiving or yards. He's only got 15 catches, 364 yards, and 4 touchdowns, but he's a big play threat. He's got all 4 of his touchdowns, I'm pretty sure, or 20 yards or more. He's a Kentucky transfer. He's somebody that was specifically noted by G.J. Kinney. He said number 6 for Troy is a really good player. And I'll admit, at the time when he said number 6, I didn't know who number 6 was. So I made a note to go back and look at him and watch some of his film, or some of the, not film, but highlights that they have of him from this season. And that's what he does. Even though he's not, Jabri Barber, is their leading receiver. It's another one to watch out for. He wears number 1 on offense. So they've got some pretty good receivers, even though they are a running offense. On the defensive side of the ball, senior linebacker Jaden McDonald leads the team in tackles and tackles for a loss. He's got 45 tackles, 7 TFL. He's kind of a do-it-all linebacker. He can get some pass breakups, get some coverage in there, break down on the run. A really good player for them. And for the 5th player, this is one where I was talking about where I couldn't really decide between 3 different players. Because when you look at the stats, these 3, none of the 3 that I'm going to mention, when you look at the stats, are at the top of the stats really for the Trojans. But there are 3 names that I know, I can remember from the years, and whenever I watch them, they always stand out to me. But number 1 is Bandit Richard Jubiner. He's from Nigeria, actually. And then junior defensive end Javon Solomon. Now I'm mentioning them together because they combined for 11.5 tackles for a loss and 8.5 sacks. They get after the quarterback. And now I said Bandit for Jubiner. It's like the outside linebacker position. We see Ben Bell play it sometimes for the Bobcats. You can call it a bandit, an edge, a rush, what have you. But Solomon, he's just he's a defensive end, hand in the ground. Defensive end, but they're gonna get after the quarterback. Those are 2 guys that may not be at the tippy top of their box score defensively, but they are going to do some damage for sure. And then I kind of put a bonus player, senior corner Reddy Stewart. Really like his name, Reddy, Reddy. You know me, I'm a name guy. I like the fun names, but 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, real salty corner for them. I imagine they'll put him on Hobart, maybe even Hawkins. It's the cool thing about Texas State is even though I was talking about Hawkins earlier, as he established himself last year as the number 1, he comes into this year and there's almost like a 1 and 1A between Hobart and Hawkins, both with H last names. I appreciate the alliteration there. But it's been a fun aspect of this offense, but I would say I would like more receivers to get into the mix. Saw Bo Corrales get out there last week. Didn't see a target at least. But there's some other receivers that we just haven't seen a ton of. But maybe when you're getting such solid play from those 2 guys, it's hard to go that deep into the depth chart. Yeah, and it's going to be the thing about the defense, and you know what, and I guess Texas State's defense is what I'm talking about now, is when we've talked about it all season, bend don't break. You know, that's a feast or famine. I've said it quite a bit with this defense. And when talking with Kenny about it this week, and he's just like, it looks a certain way with how this offense is. When he tries to explain this defense, where this offense is trying to do certain things where it makes the defense get out on the field more. They're having to, with fast offense comes fast drives, fast scores, or fast 3-and-outs, which means the defense is back out there fast. And that can get exhausting and create injuries. It's a lot, even though it seems, you would think like, oh, a fast offense, that's a lot of pressure on this offensive line. Kind of how I was looking at this offense coming into the season. But then you see it go and you're like, wow, it's almost more of a burden on the defense than how the offense is. And they are, it is the bend don't break style that we've said, but they do a good job of bending with everything. I mean, like I said earlier, third in the nation in tackles for a loss. They get after it. It's an aggressive defense as well, and so some things are going to fly by when you risk it and try and get that big play. It's going to be big for the defense because it was a big performance against ULM, and they had 4 key players out that are back. I mentioned Josh Eaton earlier. At least I think I did, at corner. Really good corner for the Bobcats. He missed last game. That was something that we didn't know going into the game, but he didn't dress out, didn't play. And then Dan Foster, same situation. He didn't dress, didn't play. Caleb Coleman, who plays at that star position, that nickel back position, he didn't play last game either. And then we saw Tavian Coleman leave the game, but he all 4 of those guys will be back. The big one, Eaton, he's their number 1 corner. He's probably one of their better DBs. That's going to be a huge one to get back. Both of those, the Coleman players, Caleb Coleman and Tavian Coleman. Tavian Coleman, defensive lineman, he left that game early. They're getting some players that were very important that weren't there when they stepped up last week. And I mean, even Jordan Revels was on a snap count. He won't be on a snap count anymore this week. Even on the offensive side, we saw Calvin Hill go down. He's going to be back this week. Mahdi is supposed to be doing a lot better. He's probably still going to have that club cast. He was practicing in it. But that bye week, they're getting a lot of guys back. They're getting some fresh bodies, more so on the defensive side of the ball than anywhere else. The running backs, it's a really good thing. But getting those guys back on defense is going to be pretty key for this week. Because when talking about this game, and I've mentioned at the top of the show that in fall camp, this was the big upset I had for the Cats this season. Maybe I had them beating UTSA as well, so maybe that could be considered the big one. But Troy is I mean, when everything that is going into the conference title race, this is a much bigger opponent. This is a much bigger game, and where they're at on the landscape of college football right now, as opposed to where UTSA was at the time, I think this is going to be a much bigger game than that. But I've been worried about that. I've been worried about that choice to say they're going to beat Troy, and I've waffled on it. I've gone back and forth ever since then when I see what Troy does and I see what Texas State does. Because even looking at Troy's schedule this year, they're 5-2, but they're on a 4-game winning streak. Let's see. I'm looking at their schedule right now, just loaded. They started the season beating Stephen F. Austin 48-30. Then they lost number 15, Kansas State. They were 15 at the time, 42-13. And then they lost to what's been proven to be a really good James Madison team, 14-16. Only lost by 2 points to JMU. Since then, they've rattled off 27-24 win over Western Kentucky, 28-7 over Georgia State, 37-3 over Arkansas State. We're a Wolves down pod, so we appreciate that one. And then 19-0 over West Point. So, I mean, that's 3 total points the last 2 games. So this is a tough opponent. And so when I look at that, you see why I waffle back and forth. I'm like, man, This is going to be a tough opponent. But I look at Texas State. I look at how healthy they are. I see them. I've seen them progress, even though we saw the flaws start to show themselves in those last two games, that Louisiana game, that Louisiana Monroe game. We saw some flaws with this Texas State team. We still see them grow, because it might be a good thing that these flaws come up, that pick six happens for TJ Finley, because now he knows even if it's a trick play where Malik Hornsby's in there and he's going to run a wheel route, you don't stare him down the whole time. You don't give it away. There can be lessons learned, and you could see TJ Finley learn it in real time by throwing the pick six and then leading them on 2 touchdown drives right after to win the game. So it's where they are growth-wise with this scheme, with everybody getting comfortable with everything, with having 2 weeks off, even though Troy also had 2 weeks off, a bye week last week. I think the Bobcats are at a really good place where at this point in the season they're going up against arguably what might be the toughest opponent the rest of their Sun Belt slate. And they aren't favored. 6.5 points, but it's homecoming. They're going to have those Southwest Texas State jerseys on. They're looking to be bowl eligible for the first time since 2014. And that is something that they know. They may not, whenever they do press conferences, they may not, 6 wins, that wasn't our goal going into the year. It's 1 game at a time. We're just trying to beat ourselves. They'll give you all of that. But this matters. This really, really matters. It matters to everybody. I know when the president, Dr. Kelly Damphus, when he was hired, 6 wins was one of the first things I heard him say, talking about bowl eligibility. So this is big. There's a lot on the line. It's at home. It's going to be an awesome crowd. The student section is going to do something wild that's going to go viral, and we're all going to love it and talk about it. Maybe love it. All of us didn't love the last one. That's understandable. But there's going to be a raucous crowd at this game, and I'm still going to take the Bobcats. I have Texas State winning this game. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as some of the stuff we've seen. I guess we're coming off a 21-20 game on the last one with ULM. But it's been a 3-point game in 2021 and 2022. I say it's going to be another 3-point game for this one. We're going to have a weird one, 28-25. I don't know how they're going to get to 25. 25 is going to happen. Maybe a safety in there somewhere. Who knows? But that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to take the Cats. And this one I'm going to stick with that preseason fall camp prediction I had of the Bobcats beating the Troy Trojans on homecoming. Get a nice homecoming win after losing on homecoming last year. They already avenged that one. They lost in homecoming last year, but then they beat Southern Miss. And we've seen them get to these points. I mentioned earlier, a thorn in the side of this program. UTSA is a thorn in the side of this program. 0-5, lost this year. Louisiana, a thorn in the side of this program. 0-11, lost this year. And even though it's 1-12, there's that one from '97 we were talking about against Troy. It's 0-8 in the Sun Belt. So this is another thorn in the side. And I've talked about it on earlier pods, earlier episodes, where they're not there yet. They're almost there, but not quite there yet. They can't quite get over these humps, these obstacles that have held back this program. And Troy is one of those obstacles. I think this is one they get over, though. This is one where they're going to get over this hump. They're going to come in healthy, ready to go. They need to score early. I don't know about scoring often. This is a pretty good defense, but they need to score early. Need to put it on them. Like I said, they're gonna try to win that time of possession battle. And maybe there's not much Texas State is going to be able to do to stop that, because that's really where they thrive. But it's going to be a big part of it. Not letting them fully win that, not letting them dominate the time of possession battle. We'll put it that way. But that'll do it. That's my preview for the Troy Trojans. I have the Cats winning 28-25, 6th win, bowl eligibility. Who knows? Maybe we'll all go jump in the river after the game. Get into that bowl eligibility. Lots of rain this week in San Marcos, so I know it'll be nice and full. So we'll see how that shakes out. I hope all of you are going out to the game. If you can't go to the game, I'm sure you're going to want to watch it. Hit me up if you're going. Most of you follow me on Twitter at Kef_C. Follow me there. Check out our Patreon page as well, patreon.com/WinNowOrGetBent. $5 a month. We've been pumping articles and stuff on there. It helps us grow, helps us do a bunch of good things. Same with our merch site. I showed the sweater off earlier, showing it off again on our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. Go check that out. Subscribe, like, comment. Check out this sweater, Sicko sweater, Win Now or Get Bent. Let them know who you are. Show them some of that Sicko gear. We got lots of the good Sicko gear. I got the mug as well. I showed the mug on the last episode. Love this mug, Sicko mug. Flip it over. We got our alt Win Now or Get Bent logo there. It's got black on the inside, out on the outside. And this is an underrated aspect of mugs that people don't really consider. It's got a nice wide handle so you don't burn your fingers. I don't know if you got big fat fingers like me, put your hand in that handle and you're touching up against the hot cup with the hot coffee. But not in those ones, but WNOGB.com. Go check that out. One more quick plug for Chilsey. Again, I'll be handing out koozies. Come look for me. Come get a koozie and check out Chilsey.com. Get custom koozies, custom tumblers, anything you want, you throw on there. Code Bobcats on orders of 6 or more on these tumblers to make them $15 a piece. Check us out our YouTube channel. As I said earlier, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on there. Our push to get to 500 subscribers. We're working our way up there. We need your help, Sicko. So get in there and help us out. That's the free way to help us out. I push the Patreon. I push the merch site. If you're a cheap guy like me and you just want to support the free way, don't worry. You can subscribe and we can still be buddies. You can also follow our Twitter account at Win Now or Get Bent on Twitter, at WNOGB on Instagram. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Tell your friends, buy a billboard. Yeah, anybody want to invest in a billboard for Win Now or Get Bent? That'd be great. We're not there yet. A few more sponsors. Maybe I'll get my own billboard. I just gave myself a great idea. Do people still do billboards? I see them around, but I don't know how effective they are. We'll have to. Maybe we'll get a pirate billboard, or I'll just climb up on a billboard and tape some stuff on there. Make them go tear it down. That's right. That's how we do it at Win Now or Get Bent. I'm just kidding if any police are listening. I don't break laws all the time. But thank you to TGC as well, TGC LLC, thegalindocollective.com, Balcones Roofing and Remodeling, Thaddeus Watkins over at San Marcos Edward Jones, and of course, Austin Patchmaster. Thank you to them. And thanks to Zach Webb, the wizard, the great producer. We did it, buddy. We got this camera going. Look at it. It's been a bit of an adventure on the back end. I haven't tweeted a whole lot. I'm not trying to bog y'all down with a whole bunch of technical jargon because obviously I don't only understand about every other word that Zach says whenever he's explaining it to me. But it's good to have this going because I've been itching. I've been itching to get on here and talk about these Bobcats. Like they finally get a 5th win, and I'm fighting tooth and nail to get the pod out. But here we are, we got it. And that's thanks to Zach Webb. And hey, you know what? A little bit of a teaser. I'm going to be introducing an intern soon. Oh, my guy. I hope you're listening. We'll get his name on the next one. But I'm real excited about what they're going to bring, what they're going to do. And I will talk more about that. But we are growing. And you know what? I've needed an intern for a little while, but I've been the unpaid intern. I've seen unpaid internships in media is rampant, and I don't like it. I don't want to do that. I wanted to get to a point where we could cut somebody in on the Patreon and the merch cost and the optimized ads that you'll listen to on the audio version. When we're at a place where we can cut somebody else in a little bit to help us out. Boom. And so now we're at that point. And that's because of y'all. Y'all have helped us grow. A successful season has helped as well. But, I've gotten to know you sickos a lot over the years. I know you would have been doing this right here, supporting all that great stuff, even if it was a down year, because that's how all of you are. Most of you are, for sure. I'm sure there's a few bandwagoners out there listening. It's okay. It's okay if you're welcome. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon. We'll make room if there's not room. It's getting pretty full. But we'll move some things over. I'll scrunch my feet in, make it so you can get in there and get on this wagon. Because the Bobcats, baby, we are a wagon, aren't we? Let's go. Get on the bandwagon. I'm all about it. But yeah, more on the intern later. But until then, Troy, kickoff, 6 p.m. That kickoff moved. I probably should have talked about that way earlier. But that kickoff moved from 2 to 6. That's for the crowd. Get that crowd out there. Get them rowdy. A little extra time at the tailgate. A little extra time to finish off a few soda pops and get that caffeine flowing, you know? But all right, everybody. See you on Saturday. Enjoy the game. Come find me. Win now or get bent.